Hello, my friends. Today we are talking about a blockchain gaming and metaverse project, Myobu, whose design, lore, and overall vision were pretty inspiring to me when I first read about it, hence why I'm making the video today. Now, if you like learning about crypto and technology in general, you should subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell notification button, and you'll get a heads up whenever I post more crypto-related content like this one on the channel. Now, right up front, for transparency, which is very important, I want to tell you that the Myobu team has sponsored today's episode to bring you educational content about their lore, their story, roadmap, and technology. That said, like all my content, this show is not about buying tokens, getting rich, nor is it a call to action to buy tokens of any kind. So this channel is very focused on information, and with that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive in. Now, you might have gotten an idea from the intro as to what Myobu is in and of itself, but I want to make it very clear that Myobu as a project is not a single game nor a profile picture project in the blockchain GameFi space. This is a project that encapsulates several games and an overarching set of products for users to delve into over time as the team ships them one by one. Let me begin with the part that I know most of you are probably here looking for, and that's the games themselves, because I know blockchain gaming is huge right now, which will of course have NFTs and economic elements interwoven into the gameplay of the games themselves. The Myobu product plan right now consists of three main games. There's Project Hikari, a strategy-oriented card game, Project Yume, a large-scale MMORPG game, and Project Shinobu, a multiplayer dungeon crawler roguelike game. Video game nerds and nomenclature buffs can feel free to share in the comments what makes a game a roguelike game. That's not my area of expertise. But these games will encapsulate the core concepts of GameFi, sort of the intersection of finance and gaming with play to earn, asset ownership, and a whole bunch more, which, as you know, is all the rage right now and will likely continue in 2022 and beyond. And don't worry, I'm going to explain more about what each of these games is related to and how they work in more detail once I explain the lore, the story behind them, because I think at that point it'll make a lot more sense. However, one last thing I want to mention is that Myobu has already shipped one major way that you can get involved with their ecosystem right now, and that is of course in the form of staking, which is a very common thing that folks start with. So those who hold the Myobu token on the Ethereum network can stake those tokens with a variable lockup period to earn a variety of different yield rates. And don't worry, layer 2 support and cross-chain support is coming, first with BSC and then more to follow. Actually, today, as of the video, BSC might be available. Anyway, with this initial staking launch, users can choose to stake Myobu via two methods: a single asset lock or liquidity provider staking mechanism, where the former offers reward multipliers for locking tokens for longer periods of time, up to 1 year or 52 weeks, and the latter offering significant rewards for staking Myobu with a paired asset in a pool like ETH or BSC. For the single asset lockup mechanism, users can choose to lock their Myobu for 1 week minimum to 1 year maximum for rewards paid in ETH, not Myobu, in return dependent on the length of that lockup. So if you lock up for 52 weeks, you get a multiplier on rewards, for example. The LP staking mechanic also pays rewards in ETH at an average higher rate of return to offset the clear risks that are involved in impermanent loss that's just present in this type of environment with a paired asset in a pool. Note that the rewards are in ETH, which is kind of unique as most DeFi projects pay in their native token. And Myobu is doing this to prevent inflation and sell pressure on the native Myobu token. So stakers may claim and restake the rewards automatically in order to compound returns over time if they want. In addition, staking NFTs for bonus APY is built into the contract, not active yet, but that'll come into play when the games that we're going to talk about here in a second come live. And the team recently announced on Twitter that they're going to incorporate yield farming in the future to mint a second token as staking rewards for in-game currency use. But we'll see how that pans out. So the current staking rewards paid in ETH, they're funded by fees. Trading tokens on dexes generate fees, which then contributes to this mechanism for rewards and staking and play to earn. Of course, this funding is also allocated to development of the games themselves. So actually, speaking of that, let's move in the direction of the games and circle back on that topic of the lore behind Myobu. To really understand the games that are being developed here, it helps to understand the story and the theme behind it all, which is what drew me to Myobu in the first place. Myobu was inspired by the Japanese celestial fox spirits of the same name, Myobu, which is just one example of the idea of a yokai, the supernatural creatures or beings in Japanese folklore. I'm really into this kind of thing, you know? In Japanese yokai folklore, Myobu specifically are white-furred foxes who bring with them happiness and blessings to those around them. This notion undoubtedly came from the age of farming in Japan, where foxes were a critical part of the ecosystem, keeping pests at bay. At least that's what I was able to find in my reading on several websites like yokai.com. In this spirit, pun intended, you often hear of Myobu in relation to Inari, the god of harvest, who used foxes as servants and messengers according to many stories that you can read online. Anyway, not to make this whole show a story of Japanese folklore, which is very interesting by the way, but Myobu are very cool looking holy creatures who bring happiness and blessings to those around them, and all the elements of this project are based off of cool creatures like this. So really, what more can you ask for? As you can imagine now, Japanese influences flow throughout Myobu, its games and its art, all the way top to bottom. And Japanese depictions of this lore are a big inspiration to the artists. So the team is trying to follow this traditional story, these traditional folklore elements, while also adding a modern metaverse and GameFi spin. I realize what's beautiful or cool or interesting about art is the subjectivity of it all, right? That some people like it, some people don't. I personally love Japanese art, style, and culture, but please let me know in the comments if you also do or if you like other stuff. That said, from my perspective, the team has done a stellar job with the art that I've seen so far, and in today's pixel art rich landscape, hand-drawn Japanese style art kind of makes Myobu stand out. Now, back to the games themselves, now that we have a general idea of the lore behind them. And I will talk about these in sort of the tentative order of release date. And of course, these release dates are subject to change. The first game to be launched, presumably by the end of 2021 or shortly thereafter, is Project Hikari, a strategy-focused trading card game with custom-drawn trading cards inspired by the aforementioned lore behind Myobu. Project Hikari will feature an initial set of 150 trading card NFTs, which can be minted by users to play in the game. And these have been drawn by a team of professional artists, so each card is a hand-drawn work of art according to the theme. The game itself will feature the tried and true turn-based mechanic for strategy-oriented card games that you might have experienced in the past. And I can show you here on the screen some examples of these trading cards, which I personally think are pretty cool, but again, goes back to the subjectivity of art. And there are tons of these that are as of yet unreleased and not shown to the public yet. The Project Hikari game is built in tandem with an NFT marketplace where the assets or trading cards themselves will be issued, and cards can be combined to create new and unique rare combinations in the game through a mechanic therein. The next game on the books that's scheduled for release afterwards is Project Shinobu, the roguelike game that I mentioned earlier. And roguelike games are generally characterized by sort of dungeon crawl gameplay experience where players traverse a grid-like map to solve puzzles and challenges and battles, and of course, finding useful loot along the way. The loot within this game will also come in the form of NFTs, no surprise, and the gameplay itself will be multiplayer in nature for competitive play with friends. As an aside, I can only assume that the Project Shinobu game is named after the 19th century Renaissance man Shinobu Orikuchi, who is credited with the creation of an entire academic area named after him that studies an amalgamation of religion, belief systems, literature, and folklore in Japan. Very cool and very fitting. If you hadn't read up on Orikuchi, you should. Really interesting area of study. As for Project Shinobu, there's no set date or timeline for the actual launch of the game yet, but it is surely more complex than Project Hikari and should further accelerate the adoption of the Myobu game ecosystem when it does come to fruition. Now, the last game in this mix, the third game, and it's surely going to take the longest because it's very complex and very large scale, is that Project Yume. Based on my reading, by the way, Yume is a dream spirit or a bringer of nightmares in Japanese yokai folklore, so maybe there will be some spookiness to this game when it launches. Who knows? I can show you some of the imagery that I've seen about it. But anyway, Project Yume is the most ambitious project of the bunch. It's an open world, massively multiplayer online role-playing game built with the Unreal Engine 5 gaming engine. The art is created by those whose previous work can be seen in examples like Halo or Gears of War, pretty notable games. So it'll be funded by revenues from the aforementioned token trading fees and revenues from the play, adoption, and NFT sales from the first 2 games to be launched that I just talked about. This project will, of course, take an incredible amount of time and effort to bring to reality. Okay, that's no secret. I think people don't realize that games like Star Atlas or Illuvium or this project Yume are massive undertakings that will take a long time to create. A lot of graphical elements, a lot of in-game mechanics to deal with and balancing. That said, the Myobu team has released some snippets of early days footage and teasers, which I've been kind of showing throughout this segment. And all in all, very enticing graphically and stylistically, at least subjectively to me, and I can't wait to see what the gameplay mechanics and reward structures will be when it launches. So a full sort of vertical slice of the game, which will show the animation style, real gameplay, and environments, is on its way here in the short term. And in the short term, users will have Project Hikari, the card game, to look forward to, then Project Shinobu thereafter, and then longer term, Yume will round out the catalog of games and provide a pretty huge experience for users to engage with for a long time. Finally, to wrap this video up, I want to quickly address questions that I know I'm going to get related to the token and the team. Okay, Myobu has minted all the tokens. There's no venture capital, there's no seed tokens, and there's no locked tokens out there, okay? The team bought their tokens themselves, and they are KYC'd. And their smart contracts have been audited by a third party, and I would expect that they will continue to be audited as they launch new things in the future. So I know I was going to get questions about that, so I figured I would address it. But I want to kick it to you. Does Myobu, the idea of Japanese folklore, these games, does any of this sound interesting to you? If so, please do check them out further. I will link up some of their websites and different informational pages for you to check out. I want to thank you for watching this and every other video on the channel. Wishing you and your family a wonderful week ahead of you. And until next time, cheers.